Good morning, everyone. We are now ready to get started with our presentation. So welcome to the Ventura County Department of Child Support Services 2021 Employer Forum. My name is Lupe Magaña, and I will be facilitating today's event. We are excited to bring you this employer workshop as we understand the important role you play in the child support program. Being that August is Child Support Awareness Month, it brings us joy to be able to be of assistance to you and to collaborate with you to meet the needs of our community. By the end of this presentation, our goal is for you, the employer, to have a better understanding on how to process documents received from our child support office and to be aware of the tools available to make your job easier. We will hold a Q&A after all presenters have concluded. You are more than welcome to submit your questions in the Q&A chat throughout the presentation. Without any further delay, I will be introducing today's speakers. First, we have Iris Hammonds, who is our Community Relations Manager, and will give you an introduction to the child support program. Angela Jones is the Employer Outreach Coordinator for the California Department of Child Support Services and will be presenting on non-40 cases, the State Disbursement Unit, also known as SDU, lump sum wage garnishments, electronic wage garnishment, also known as EIWO, and she will show you how to report new hires and independent contractors. Michael Marcello is our Senior Attorney and will be presenting on income withholding orders, also known as IWO. Sonia Lopez is a Supervising Child Support Services Specialist and will be presenting on the National Medical Support Notice, also known as NMSN. We also have Tyler Petrangelo, who is the Lead Child Support Services Specialist and will be presenting on wage and insurance verifications and will also show us a website demonstration of our local child support website and the state website. Thank you for attending our workshop, and we hope you find this presentation helpful. And now I am turning it over to Iris.
Hi, everyone. My name is Iris Hammonds, and I oversee the community relations team here for the Department of Child Support Services in Ventura County. As Lupe mentioned, this workshop will provide you with an overview of child support wage withholdings and health insurance requirements for employers and payroll professionals. But before we get to that, I did want to share a bit of background on the services that we provide for the families here in Ventura County. Our core purpose is to help families thrive. And our vision is to transform lives through the power of child support. The mission here at the Ventura County Department of Child Support is to promote the well-being of children and families by working to ensure that children receive consistent and reliable support from both parents. So how do we do this and how do we make this happen? So we work to establish strong partnerships with community-based organizations that help us serve the whole family. We understand that in order for families to thrive, we have to work to establish right-size orders and payable orders. Our goal is also to help meet the needs of families we serve by connecting them to community resources and programs that will strengthen the whole family. So you might be asking yourself, okay, yes, we get these wage assignments, but what exactly is child support? Well, child support is a court-order obligation for a parent to provide the support of his or her children. And this typically includes a monthly child support amount, a requirement to provide health insurance, parentage, and child care cost. If the parent is ordered to pay child support and they're able to provide health insurance, then the employer we will send out an income withholding order with health insurance for the employer to enforce that, unless health insurance is deemed unreasonable, and we will go over that later in this webinar. The services that we provide are finding absent parents, establishing parentage, establishing child and medical support orders, enforcing child support and medical and spousal support orders, modifying child support orders, and collecting and distributing that money to families. We do offer no-cost genetic testing if parentage is at issue, and we will also assist in completing parentage declaration documents for unmarried parents. And there is no need to open up a child support case for us to provide this service to you. The services do not include that we don't provide are divorce, child support custody, visitation, restraining orders, spousal support only orders. So even though we do not provide these services, if a family does come to us requesting assistance, we will offer referrals to these agencies that can help them. And typically we refer them to the Family Law Self-Help Center. And lastly, before we move on to the webinar, I wanted to point out how important the partnership between employers and the Department of Child Support is. In federal fiscal year 2020, the child support program collected $2.9 billion in child support. 61% of the child support was collected by income withholding orders directly from paychecks. And 85% of those collections went directly to families. So as you can see, the collaboration between employers and the Department of Child Support Services reaps so many benefits to the families that we serve. So without further ado, I will hand this over to Michael Marcello, who will be going over the next section of our webinar. Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, employers. Again, my name is Michael Marcello, one of the attorneys here with the department, and I'm just going to go over this packet, the income withholding orders. It's probably something for many of you that you've seen at least once before, but it's really good to get that refresher on what it's about, what it requires you to do, and basically how to manage this big pile of papers that you get in the mail. We really want to make sure that you understand what your requirements are. And the good thing about the income withholding order is it's pretty explicit. It tells you what you must do and what you must not do. So we're just going to go over those now. The first step is always to read it thoroughly. Why? Because we want to find out who sent this document to you. It's typically going to be from one of three people. Either the Ventura County Department of Child Support Services or another local child support agency. It could be from a private attorney who's gone through the process to get an order for child support for their client, but is not using the department's services, or it might be from an out-of-state child support agency. So it's really important to know who sent it to you so you can know what steps to follow. Important reminder, which we're going to circle back to again, is if it's out of state, you want to send it to the correct state disbursement unit. Most of the time, we're going to be sending it to California, but there are occasions where you may have to go to other states. Next slide, please. So the typical income withholding order that you'll see is probably from Ventura County Department of Child Support Services. And there's three simple steps that you'll have to follow each time you get one. And the first thing to remember is that big idea that 10 days is important. Within 10 days of receiving an income withholding order, the employer, that's you, must notify your employee, the person who owes child support, that you got the income withholding order, give them a copy, and a blank request for hearings regarding earning assignment. It's just basically a document that they're entitled to get, so that way they know what rights they have and they can avail themselves of those rights. The second step is to remember that you must begin withholding that amount specified no later than 10 days within the first pay period after receiving that income withholding order. So that 10-day number, it's really important. Don't forget about that. Next slide, please. It's a little bit different when a private attorney sends you an income withholding order, and that's why it's classified as non-4D. What does that mean? It's just whether it's inside the federal 4D program, Department of Child Support Services cases, or not. And one of the main differences with this step versus the other income withholding order is that you need to send a copy of the private income withholding order to the California State Disbursement Unit. Why is this important? Because they need to assign you a case number. That way, every time you send in your payment, you have the identifying information necessary to make sure the payment gets applied and that your employee gets the credit that they deserve for paying their child support on time. So again, remember, when you get that private income withholding order, you'll send a copy up to the State Disbursement Unit. They'll assign you a case number and then you'll remit your payments using that information. Next slide, please. Again, like I said, big reminder about other states. You'd hate to go through the process of withholding money from your employee and then sending it to California when it really is supposed to be going to Arizona or Texas or something like that. So read it, find out exactly where the state disbursement unit is, and make sure you mail it to that correct state. Next slide. So step 2 is really that fork in the road to find out, is this the first time you're receiving something about an employee, or have they been paying child support but something needs to change? So you're going to see on the top of the income withholding order, whether it's just a plain income withholding order, if it's being amended, meaning there's a change to the amount of child support, or possibly even terminating, meaning that your employee doesn't need to pay child support anymore. Next slide. We also need your help if for any reason the employee leaves your employment. You will have something called an employee termination form, which basically gives you a way to communicate with the child support agency to say, hey, my employee isn't working for me anymore, but I know that he is leaving, he or she is leaving, and here's that information to keep track of them. And that really helps us stay in contact with you, so we're not wondering, hey, I'm wondering why the employer hasn't sent a payment in a couple of months. Well, if that employee doesn't work for you anymore, that's probably a good reason why it's not happening. So it's a great tool to communicate with us and keep everybody informed. Just a reminder of one of those must versus must not. At the bottom of this screen, you'll see that an employer must not fire somebody just because they have a child support order and that you have to garnish it. That's something that an employer needs to honor because there are statutory protections for employees. So we just want to give a gentle reminder that that's not a good reason to let somebody go. Next slide, please. Step 3, again, as we had touched on a little earlier in this presentation, make sure you give your employee their forms. If you're doing business in California, there are some family codes listed here on the screen that you can refresh yourself on that basically require you to give those forms to the employee. So again, there should be documents in that large packet that are titled employee copy, which really easily helps you identify which documents to give. And again, it was that copy of the income withholding order and a request for hearing regarding earnings assignment. Next slide, please. Again, really important. When do I start withholding the money? Again, that 10-day, that really important timeline. You must begin withholding no later than the first pay period that occurs 10 days after the income withholding order date. And how do you do that? Once you start withholding the money, you're going to see the instructions on how to do it, what the amounts are, and you're going to want to make sure that you identify everybody using things like their name, social security number, and date of birth. And those are the same pieces of information that you'll be matching up on the income withholding order to make sure that the employee you're garnishing is the correct employee. Oftentimes you get a question, well, what if this person's name or social security number, who I think is the person you're talking about, doesn't match the document that you sent me in the mail? Well, that's a question that we need to clear up. So we've given you the 1-866-901-3212 number. Reach out to us so we can double check our figures and make sure that the information we sent you is correct. We would hate to have you garnish somebody who had been misidentified or shouldn't actually have their wages withheld. So please keep in contact with us so we can resolve those questions. Next slide, please. A really good part of the income withholding order is that it's specific. The income withholding order provides you specific amounts to withhold based on your pay cycle. We're not asking you to change how you do business. We just want to give you the necessary amounts that you would withhold based on the way that you pay your employees. On the screen, you'll see an example of what the income withholding order might look like. It'll tell you that first, your employee owes, in this case, $509 a month for child support, and they have some back due child support called arrears. And we are asking you to garnish $127.25 towards those arrears. That gives you a total amount in a month of $636.25. Right below that, it says amounts to withhold, giving you clear instructions that if you pay your employee weekly, you would take $146.82, semi-monthly, twice a month, which is different than bi-weekly, $318.12. Then we have the bi-weekly amount of $293.65. Or if you pay them once a month, that full amount of $636.25. Next slide, please. How do we calculate what money is available from our employees to send back to SDU for child support? That's called calculating the amount of net disposable income. At the bottom of this screen, we've given you the formula. It's a pretty easy formula, which you basically would use to find out what you're paying your employee gross. Then you subtract the mandatory deductions. You multiply that by 50%, and that gives you your disposable income. Sometimes people wonder, well, what counts as wages? It's not their hourly, but it's part of their compensation package. Wages counted as part of an employee's or independent contractor's income includes things like salary, tips, bonuses, commissions, gratuities, vacation pay, retirement pay, and regular overtime. So it could be much more than they would get as part of their normal pay. If they have a spike because of overtime or anything like that, that's all eligible. Next slide, please. This is a good question or time to check in to make sure that we're understanding. I only have enough for part of my employee's obligation. Which one comes first? So it is true that sometimes employees have more child support than they can afford to pay through garnishment through their employer. So you have, as the employer, have to read through the paperwork and make sure you understand which amounts you're withholding and if there are sources available, how to prioritize them. Current child support, family support, and or spousal support takes top priority. That's the part that we want to make sure gets paid above all else. If there are health premiums and other current medical support, that comes second. That arrears payment that we had mentioned a couple slides ago, that comes third, and any remaining ordered amounts comes last. In California, when an employee or an independent contractor's net disposable income is inadequate to meet their obligation, again, child support takes precedence over medical coverage. We're going to give you some examples in the next coming slides that shows the difference as to how to prioritize those. Next slide, please. So here's an example of what those mandatory deductions are, an example of how to determine what net disposable income is. In this example, your employee has a gross income of $4,882 per month. But as the employer, you know you're automatically withholding things like federal income tax, state income tax, your FICA, Medicare, SDI, and in this case, the employee has a mandatory retirement program, which they pay into. So those things come out first, leaving a net disposable income of $36.91. You multiply that by 50%, and the amount available for deduction is just half, $1,845, and that's the amount that you're going to be considering when you're looking at the income withholding order to see how much that you can send into the SDU. Next slide, please. So again, just as a reminder, your employee has $1,845 available for deduction, and in this case, they have two child support orders with arrears. Order A for $150 plus $50 in back support, and order B at $100 per month in current child support plus $25 towards the arrears. The total for both orders is only $325, and as you can see, that's much less than the amount available for deduction, so you'll remit the full obligation for both orders to the California State Disbursement Unit. Now, if an employee has multiple income withholding orders that total more than 50% of their net disposable income, the employer, that's you, can call the state that issued the income withholding order or California's State Disbursement Unit at 1-866-901-3212 for assistance if you have any confusion about how to remit the payments. Next slide. So on that topic of sending in money, you want to make sure you send it in correctly to the California SDU or the other state if it's coming from out of state. It's really important that you send your employees withholdings in on time. And the reason for that is because when an income withholding payment comes in late or not at all, say for whatever reason, HR doesn't send it in or payroll doesn't send it in on time, your employee will face increased back pay, those arrears that we've been talking about, and the family that's waiting to receive the support will face financial instability. This kind of really highlights why we're really excited to have you here at the Employer Forum, because we want to reach out to you and remind you how important you are in this process to support families here in Ventura County. So we really want to encourage you to help us help the families that we serve by submitting the income withholding payments on time to the SDU. Here's another one, just before we move on to the next slide, just one final reminder about things that we must do and what we must not do. This is a reminder that employers who fail to withhold the amounts as specified on the income withholding orders may be found liable for the full amounts of the support owed plus a fine. It's probably why they're having the attorney tell you this part. Under certain circumstances, a willful failure to withhold is punishable by contempt of court. And in addition, the court may order payment by electric funds transfer from the employer's bank account if the employer willfully failed to withhold the required support. Finally, when you are sending in that payment, just remember to identify your employee very specifically, their name, their child support enforcement case number, which is listed on the income withholding order, their social security number, the date that you withheld the money, and the amount that you withheld for each employee if you're submitting it for multiple people. I think at this time, we're going to move on to Angela Jones' section. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that if there are any questions later, I'm happy to address them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I wanted to start off by saying just thank you to each of you for your important role that you each play in sustaining the child support program. Employers as well as payroll professionals are one of our most valuable partners, and I hope that this virtual employer forum is providing you with a better understanding of your value to the child support program. So let's go ahead and get started with bonus or lump sum reporting. Next slide. So the types of payments that are considered a bonus or a lump sum are going to be bonus pay or commissions, severance or buyout payments, and then in addition to that, vacation payouts, retirement incentives, and commissions. So I wanted to share with you how, next slide, how you can report, what the one-time lump sum income withholding order is going to look like when you receive it. So at the top of the income withholding order, it's going to be the same form that you receive when you receive your income withholding orders, but at the top of the form, one-time order notice for lump sum payment will be marked. And then this will also be coming from either a child support agency, court or attorney, or even a private entity. And towards the bottom in the middle of this form, you will see your employee's case identifier as well as their information, their name, their case number, as well as your company's federal employer identification number. And then towards the bottom, you'll see the lump sum pay amount. And this is going to be how much is owed in arrears for your employee. You can withhold up to 50% of that bonus or lump sum payment to help in paying down your employee's past due child support. So there are several different ways that you can report a bonus or a lump sum payment. You can report it electronically utilizing the child support portal. I've provided the web address here. This is offered through the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement, and you can go on there and register to report the bonus or lump sum payments electronically. If you do report it electronically, you'll receive a match or no match notification letting you know if there are arrears that are owed for your employee, and if you need to withhold a payment from that bonus or lump sum. In addition to that, you can also report the bonus or lump sum payment to the lump sum response team at the email address provided here. It would be helpful to let them know as soon as that payment is going to be, as soon as you know that that employee is going to be receiving a bonus or a lump sum payment. Some employees will report monthly or even quarterly, or even at the beginning of the year if you know that that employee is going to be receiving a bonus or a lump sum payment. Let them know your employee's case number as well as your contact information, and that one-time lump sum income withholding order can be emailed to you or faxed to you, whichever way can get to you to help you process it easier. And then you can also give the lump sum response team a call at the phone number provided here. So next I'm going to cover electronic income withholding order, or EIWO. Michael went over the income withholding order with a hard copy document, but you also have the ability to receive that document electronically. I know in live presentations, there's always at least 1 or 2 employees that have already enrolled. So I would ask you if there are any employees that are attending that are enrolled in electronic income withholding order, can you share in the Q&A what you like the best since you've enrolled in EIWO, how it's made processing the income withholding order easier for you. So if you can share it with your peers here that may be thinking about enrolling in EIWO. So I want to think about you to think about some of the benefits and how much time you have saved since enrolling. Employers have shared with me in previous workshops that since they've enrolled in EIWO, it has pushed them to become paperless in other aspects of their business because it has helped streamline the child support process. So in this section, I'm going to go over how you can register for the EIWO process, as well as the different options that are available to you. And then we will go over what those acknowledgements will look like, and then I'm going to share with you some additional resources. So what is EIWO? EIWO is going to allow you to receive that income withholding order electronically. It will also allow you to, an additional way to notify the child support agency if your employee is going to be receiving a bonus or a lump sum payment, or if your employee has been terminated from your company. And then you'll also be able to accept or reject any of those income withholding orders. Next slide. So some additional benefits, if you are receiving that income withholding order electronically, and if you're also making your payments to the state disbursement unit electronically, which I'll share with you later in the presentation, but the child support payment will ultimately get to the family sooner. Employers have already shared with me that since they've enrolled in EIWO, it has saved them time, money, and resources. And another benefit is that you only have to enroll in the electronic income withholding order process one time. And if you receive income withholding orders from multiple states, you will then begin receiving all those income withholding orders electronically. And this will help increase the accuracy and reliability of the data. And there's no cost to you when you enroll in the EIWO process. Next slide. So the registration, it does include an agreement to process income withholding orders electronically. So to register, you will accept this agreement that's on the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement on their website. And then you'll also include the Federal Employer Identification Number spreadsheet. Next slide. The diagram provided here, this illustrates the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement's electronic income withholding order process. This will be extremely helpful for your IT personnel because it shows how that EIWO is sent to the employer from the child support agencies and then how it is batched for each employer. Then each of the batches are sent to the employer and then you are able to respond to each of those electronic income withholding orders with the acknowledgements. And then each of those batches are sent back to the respective states. So please share this slide with your IT personnel. Next slide. So there are two options for employers to choose to implement. First, there is the system interface. This does require some IT resources for programming, but it is the best option for employers that receive a high volume of income withholding orders. The second option is the no programming option. When employers are enrolled in the no programming option, you will receive a PDF of each of those income withholding orders. And this is optimal for employers that receive a low volume of income withholding orders, but it's a very simple implementation. Next slide. So for employers that are looking to implement the system-to-system option, the estimated time to go live from enrolling until you start receiving those income withholding orders electronically is approximately 3 to 5 months. So this is another slide to make note of to share with your IT personnel. Next slide. The no programming option, it does offer two options for employers to select to meet. So that's going to best meet your needs. Option one, you will receive a PDF of each of those income withholding orders, but the major difference is that the acknowledgement will be received as a PDF, and this one is best for employers that have about 600 or more employees. And then option two, this is best suited for the small or medium-sized employers, and the the acknowledgement will be sent to you on an Excel spreadsheet. Next slide. The first example shown here, this is of the PDF acknowledgement. So the top portion of the income withholding acknowledgement, this will include the type of income withholding order that you are receiving. If it's an original, an amended, a one-time lump sum, or a termination of that income withholding order. And then in the PDF acknowledgement will also include your employee's case identifier, as well as your employee's first name, last name, middle initial, and their social security number. And then you'll also see your company's federal employee identification number on here as well. Then in the income withholding order disposition status section, this is where you are able to accept or reject that income withholding order and then select the disposition reason code. The second sample shown here, this is of the Excel acknowledgement. This, on the Excel acknowledgement, you will also see the type of income withholding order that you are receiving in column B. If it's an original, an amended, a one-time lump sum income withholding order, or a termination of that income withholding order. And then this will also include your employee's case identifier, as well as your employee's name, first and last name, social security number, and your company's federal employee identification number. In column K of the acknowledgement, this is where you can accept or reject that income withholding order, and then include the disposition reason code in column L. Next slide. So the sample shown here, this is of the employer-initiated acknowledgement. This form is used to report a one-time lump sum payment or a termination of employment. If you are reporting a one-time lump sum payment, provide the lump sum date, as well as the lump sum amount and the type of lump sum that your employee is going to be receiving as soon as you know that that employee is going to be receiving that payout. And then if you're reporting a termination of employment, provide the termination date, as well as your employee's last known phone number, as well as last known home address. And then also we need to know the date that you're going to be remitting that final payment to the state disbursement unit and the amount. Another piece of helpful information for the child support agency is going to be that new employer's name and address. This is going to be helpful to make sure that income withholding order is able to be generated either electronically if that employer is an EIWO employer, or that income withholding order can be sent to that new employer as well. Next slide. So each day, the child support agency will receive an email that includes a processing summary, and that's on what's shown on the left-hand side of this slide. On the right-hand side of the slide, this is an example of the email that the employer will receive daily. And this is also going to be helpful to share with your IT personnel or anyone that is going to be receiving the email daily from the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement. Next slide. So when preparing for the electronic income withholding order, this slide includes the types of Adobe and servers that are required. This is also going to be very helpful to share with your IT personnel. The next steps in preparing for the electronic income withholding order includes completing the profile form on the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement, as well as the Federal Employer Identification Number spreadsheet. Then that will be followed by setting up connectivity, and then the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement will conduct a test to make sure that your company is receiving the files correctly, and then you will begin receiving those income withholding orders electronically. Right. So the EIWO resource that I provided here includes the web address that will take you directly to the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement's EIWO page, as well as the email address for the EIWO team. On this page, it does have some additional information on both the system-to-system option and the no programming option, so you can select the best one that's going to fit your company's needs. And when you're ready to enroll, send an email over to the EIWO team, let them know which option that you're interested in, and they will help set you up with the process from beginning to your sending your test files until your go live date. Next slide. So now I'm going to turn it back over to, actually I'm going to turn it over to Sonia from Ventura County Child Support Services to go over the National Medical Support Notice. Thank you.
My name is Sonia Lopez. I am with the Ventura County Department of Child Support Services. I've been with this department for over 20 years, and I am going to walk you through the National Medical Support Notice. So first things first, let's talk about what are our legal obligations, which really is what are our responsibilities as your local child support agency. Our responsibilities are to obtain orders for health insurance on all our orders. Now, many times when anyone thinks of our department, they think of the child support component, you know, the child support orders that we obtain, but we are also required to establish health insurance orders for all the children. Our other obligation is obviously to serve the order on the employer, which this is going to be via the National Medical Support Order Notice. We also provide the PRS, who is the parent receiving support, with the health insurance information once you provide it to us. And lastly, we are tasked with enforcing the health insurance order up until the child emancipates and we close our case. Now, what types of medical support are we seeking to establish? This could be anything from medical, dental, vision, prescription, mental health, and we understand that the policies vary. They could be in a combined plan or they could be separate policies, and that is okay, but this is what we're seeking when we send the National Medical Support Notice. So let's talk about your obligations as far as what are your responsibilities when you get this packet. You are to allow enrollment of the health insurance without regard to open enrollment restrictions. And this is going to be different. It's not one of those situations where we have to wait till that specific time of year to enroll the children. Remember, this is via court order. So you are supposed to enroll the children once you receive that NIMSIN. You're also responsible for deducting the costs of the health insurance in addition to the child support amount, again, without exceeding the 50% of the net rule, and we'll go over that in a bit. And you're also responsible to notify the local child support agency if your 50% withholding limitations prevent the implementation of the health insurance order. Some things that you cannot do. So again, employers cannot deny enrollment because the child was born outside the marriage, because the child was not claimed as a dependent on tax returns, or because, you know, the child or children does not reside with the employee. Again, this is not your normal situation when you're adding your family to health insurance or some people that live in your household. This is via court order, so that the situation is a little bit different. And employers cannot terminate the coverage once established unless the health insurance is no longer going to be offered for any employer. So something's changing in your company, or you receive a NIMSIN termination from our office. That would be the only time you actually would be terminating the order. So let's talk about the forms. As we mentioned in the IWO section, you do get a wide variety of forms, and I will apologize in advance. Many of our forms get printed in overnight batch. What that means is all these forms get placed in an envelope. They're not necessarily stapled together in the packets how they belong. So I want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the packets and how to put them together. So let's talk about all of the forms that you receive. In your National Medical Support Notice packet, you're going to get your cover letter. This one's really important. It's going to give you all the information you need. The subject line is going to tell you what documents are enclosed, and many of our forms look the same. There may be one little box that is different, that it could be a new form or an amended form or a termination. So it's important to look at the cover letter and the information that it gives you. It's also going to have your employee information, your case information if you need to reach us, also your instructions and legal requirements that we're going over right now. All of this is outlined in the cover letter. You're also going to get the National Medical Support Notice Part A and B, and you're also going to get two more forms on there, which is the Statement of Obligor's Rights and Procedures regarding NIMSIN. So now I'm going to walk you through how to put these packets together. So the first package you're going to put together is actually your copy. This could go in your employee file. That part is going to have the National Medical Support Notice Part A. It's going to have the limitations on withholding, which actually gives you information on that 50% limit that we've been speaking about. The employer response, this is a form that you could actually use to communicate with us to let us know you've received the NIMSIN. And then the instructions to employer, which is 2 pages long. The next packet that you're going to be putting together is your packet for your plan administrator. Now, this is going to go to HR or payroll or whoever's actually responsible in your company for enrolling the children on the health insurance. They are going to get the National Medical Support Notice Part B. They're going to get the plan administrator response, and then the instructions to plan administrator, which is 3 pages. I do want to point out, Plan B discloses confidential information, so you want to make sure you're giving the right part to the appropriate person. And let's go to the next slide and I'll show you what I mean. So this is an example of the National Medical Support Notice Part A. Part A and Part B look identical. So you could easily confuse these, but I want to point you to the bottom left-hand section of this form where it has the child or children's information. You're going to see the Social Security number field. In the NIMSIN Part A, that information is has access on part of the social, so you're not disclosing personal information. NIMSIN Part B discloses the full social, and that is because we understand that your plan administrators need that information to add the child or children to the health insurance. So again, it's just very important you pay attention to which NIMSIN you're using when you're putting your packets together. Now, Let's talk a little bit about timeframe. So you receive your packet. Now, what are you supposed to do? Within 10 business days, you have to notify your employee of the receipt of the NIMSIN. And how do you do this? You're going to provide them with their own packet. And this, again, is outlined in the cover letter, but we're going to go over it. You're going to provide them with the NIMSIN Part A. Again, that's the one that has the Social Security number with excess on it. You want to make sure you give Part A and not Part B. They're also going to get their statement of obligors, rights, and procedures regarding the National Medical Support Notice. This is Form DCSS 0361, and this was included as part of your packet. The other form that they need to receive is the request and notice of hearing regarding health insurance assignment, and also the instructions for that. I listed both form numbers on there. This is not included on your packet, but it is available online for you to get and print it. And I'm putting the link below of where you obtain that, and we're also going to walk you through that website in another portion of the presentation. So within 20 business days after receiving the National Medical Support Notice, you need to forward the NIMSIN for enrollment. That means you're forwarding the NIMSIN Part B packet to the healthcare administrator to enroll the child or children. And you also, within 20 business days, need to respond to us and let us know that you have done this. You'll be doing that by sending us the employer response form. And again, that was included in your packet. If your employee is no longer employed, that is also the form that you would use to give us that information. And also please provide the last information you have on your employee, address, phone number, any of that information, so we can try to reach out to them. So after you've received the NIMSIN, you've notified your employer, you sent it to your plan administrator. Now, within 40 business days of all of this happening, you must provide the health insurance coverage information to your local child support agency. So when 40 business days of receipt of the NIMSIN, health insurance needs to be in place. The information that we're going to need is, of course, the health insurance company name, the claims address, the phone number, policy number, and the members covered. And again, we always have a form where you could provide us all the information that we need. And the form that you could use for this information is the health insurance information form. I've listed the number on there, and this is one of those forms that does not come in your packet, but is available online. So once everything is in place, a child or children have been enrolled. Once that is in place, and the health insurance lapses for whatever reason, or the employee departs and is no longer there, you do need to notify us within 10 business days of that lapse in health insurance. We do need to know the date that the health insurance ended, the reason for the lapse, and if it happens to be temporary, please let us know when it's going to resume. And again, the form that you could use to notify us of this change is a termination of benefits / employment notice, which is available online. And we do ask you that you notify us of this right away, simply because we have to notify the other party that health insurance is no longer in place. So it's very important. So let's talk a little bit about the penalty of non-compliance. Any employer who willfully fails to comply with the NIMSIN is liable to the parent order to receive support, also known as PRS, for the amount incurred in healthcare services that would have otherwise been covered by health insurance. Failure to comply is punishable by contempt. Now, I know this is not going to happen to anyone here because you are all here to learn how to implement the National Medical Support Notice, but I do have to just let you know there is a penalty of non-compliance. So let's talk now a little bit further about the 50% withholding limit. So deducting costs of the health insurance coverage in addition to the child support amount cannot exceed 50% of the employee's net disposable income. If that does happen, we do ask that you notify your local LCSA if those limitations are preventing the enrollment of the health insurance. And let's go over a few examples. So let's say that you've done the calculation that Michael went over as far as to determine what is the net disposable income that you can use. So after all the mandatory deductions, your employee has $1,200 available. So again, if we do that by 50%, the actual amount that you can use for the child support and health insurance obligations is $600. So let's say that we have an order for $400 in child support plus the health insurance cost of $100. That totals $500. In this scenario, the employer would be implementing both the income withholding order and the national medical support order because it falls under that 50% threshold. Now let's look at another example. Same disposable income, just to keep it clear. So this particular order though is $700 a month plus your $100 cost for monthly health insurance. So if you were to deduct both, that would be a total of $800, which exceeds the 50% limit. So we cannot implement both. In this situation, you would actually be allocating $600, which is the maximum you could deduct. And that is all that the LCSA would be receiving. We do ask you that you contact us to let us know why the obligations are not being met. If you don't contact us, chances are that we will reach out to you to find out. But we cannot exceed that 50% limit. So in this obligation, you would only be sending $600. So let's go over one more example. So again, same net, the disposable income, which is $600. Your child support amount is $400. And this is an employee that doesn't have a package for the health insurance, so it's different plans. So the medical insurance cost is $175, the dental insurance cost is $80, and the vision insurance cost is $25. So that would be a total of $680. Again, our limit is $600. So as an employer, you would be allocating $400 towards your child support, $175 towards the medical insurance cost. We do not have enough to add the dental insurance, but vision coverage is allowed because that gets us at the $600 maximum limit. So that is what we would be doing on this case, the child support amount, medical insurance, and vision only. And again, you can communicate with us and just let us know this is what we did. We weren't able to add dental, but we've implemented all these plans. So let's talk a little bit about reasonable health insurance. So after you've done your 50% limit calculation, you determine that it meets the criteria that you can make all these deductions and add health insurance, but your employee is still telling you, I can't afford this is too much. In those situations, we do ask you that you refer the employee to us because Family Code Section 3551A2 does define health insurance as reasonable if the cost does not exceed 5% of the obligor's gross income. Now, I don't want you to get confused. Your portion where you're determining the 50% threshold is on the disposable income. This calculation is actually something that's done by our department. If a parent feels that it's too expensive and they can't afford the health insurance, they could contact us and we do a different calculation just to determine if it's reasonable per this family code section. The information that we need you to provide to your employee is we're going to need the employee's monthly gross earnings, which usually is a check stub. We need the health insurance cost for employee self and the health insurance cost for the employee plus the family. And what we do is determine the difference and then determine if it's within that 5% of the gross income. Again, this is a completely different calculation done by our department. But if you have an employee that has a concern about the cost of the health insurance, even though it's within the 50% limit, please do refer them to us. And let's talk about priority of deductions. Again, we already went over this in the income withholding order section. I'm just going to go over it again. I just broke it down one step further. So first priority is always going to be towards current child support and then current spousal support. We have, of course, the health insurance premiums, and then any arrears, whether it's child support or spousal support, those will get paid at the end. It's important to note that child support deductions always take priority over other agency garnishments. A possible exception to this would be like IRS tax liens.
Now we're going to cover private cases, or called non-4D. I didn't want to confuse everybody with calling them non-4D, but these are the private cases, and just kind of what those are and what those are going to look like when you receive income withholding orders for private cases at your company. Next slide. So what is a private case? A private case, that is going to be a case where the person receiving support has not requested assistance from the local child support agency. So that child support order is going to be enforced by either that person receiving support or their attorney. And the income withholding order, as well as the national medical support notices, are going to be filed and served by the person ordered to receive support or that attorney. So what that means is, if that income withholding order or national medical support notice, if those documents need to be changed, amended, terminated, or anything of that nature, that will need to be done by the person receiving support or their attorney. Next slide. So what are those income withholding orders going to look like and what are your responsibilities? So effective May 31st, 2011, the income withholding orders, that is, if you receive one that is not payable to the state disbursement unit, please contact that the person who is listed as the contact person on that income withholding order and let them know that you need an updated income withholding order payable to the state disbursement unit. All income withholding orders for private cases need to be on these document numbers that are listed on the bottom of this slide. So if you do have that situation, just make sure you're reaching out to the individual on the contact information on that income withholding order. Next slide. Some additional employer responsibilities. All payments for that income withholding order do need to be remitted to the state disbursement unit. And then also, prior to remitting the payments to the state disbursement unit, reach out to the state disbursement unit at 866-901-3212 and select option 1 and let them know that you've received an income withholding order for a private case. And you will need to provide that state disbursement unit with a copy of that private income withholding order so that income withholding order can be registered and a child support enforcement number can be established, as well as a participant ID number for your employees and the individual that is receiving the payment. This will help ensure that when you are remitting the payments to the state disbursement unit, they are allocated to your employee's case and then dispersed out to the children and family. And once again, that phone number is 866-901-3212, option and option 1. So I wanted to also go over some of the limitations. So since this case is one that where the person receiving support has not utilized the local child support agency to manage the case, the local child support agency is not able to modify, terminate, or make any amendments to that income withholding order because it was issued by the person receiving support and the attorney. If you do have questions, if you happen to have an employee that you have a case for that's being managed by the local child support agency, and then you also receive an income withholding order for a private case, please reach out to the issuing party and the local child support agency so they can check to see which order you should be enforcing. If it's the same child, definitely need to research that. That would be a kind of a one-off situation. But if it's different children, those would be separate orders. Once again, the state disbursement unit's phone number is 866-901-3212, option 1. And one other thing I did want to add, one slide back, there are some benefits when the parents or the guardians do seek assistance from a local child support agency to manage their case. So the local child support agency will provide services to the parents and guardians of minor children. And then the local child support agency does also offer services regardless of marital status or income for the guardian or the parent. So next I wanted to cover California State Disbursement Unit, more commonly called the SDU. So the SDU is a single location for processing and dispersing all incoming child support payments. Federal law as well as state law, it mandates that all states have a single point for collections and disbursements of those child support payments. Next slide. So some of the employer responsibilities, as Michael stated earlier, make sure that you are deducting the amount that is listed on that income withholding order. In addition to that, all of those payments need to be remitted to the state disbursement unit within 7 days of deducting that from your employee's payroll. There's also some identifying pieces of information that need to be included with each payment to ensure that the state disbursement unit can allocate the payment towards your employee's child support case. Then also forward the payments to the appropriate state disbursement unit and select an electronic electronic payment option for remitting those payments to the state disbursement unit. Next slide. So some benefits when you do elect to make your payments electronically to the state disbursement unit, which hopefully all of you are already doing that. There's going to be fewer errors, and then no checks will be lost in the mail. It's going to save you time and money because you're not going to be printing checks to send in the mail to the state disbursement unit. And the state disbursement unit will also be able to process your payment faster for your employee and get the payment sent out to the children and family. There's also going to be less calls, and it's a green process. Next slide. So I wanted to also go over California Family Code 17309.5. If you are an employer that is making payments electronically to the Franchise Tax Board or FTB, or the Employment Development Department or EDD, then child support payments are also required to be sent utilizing electronic funds transfer to the state disbursement unit. Let's go over some of the electronic payment options that are available to you. The first one is the Automated Clearinghouse or ACH credit. This is similar to how you make your payroll, pay your payroll to your employees for and do direct deposit. Similar type of process. If you're interested in setting up the ACH credit option, please reach out to the state disbursement unit at 866-901-3212 and select option 1. Or you can email the electronic help desk at the email address provided here, and they can help you get set up with the Automated Clearinghouse electronic payment option. Next slide. So the second electronic payment option is the Automated Clearinghouse debit or credit card. This will be utilizing a national pay site called ExpertPay. It's at the web address provided here. It's expertpay.com. I would encourage each of you, if you are not already registered for ExpertPay, to go on there and register today so you can make the ACH debit as well as credit card payments for your employees' payroll. And then I also wanted to share with you the address for the state disbursement unit on the next slide. If you are a California employer, you should be making all of your payments electronically to the state disbursement unit. But if we do have any out-of-state employers that are attending this virtual employer forum, I provided the address for the state disbursement unit here. And I also want to just encourage each employer, please do not send payments directly to the local child support agency. All payments need to be remitted to the state disbursement unit. We want to help try and prevent any delays in that child support payment from being processed. Next slide. So earlier I mentioned there's some pieces of information that need to be included with each of those payments that are remitted to the state disbursement unit. I know there's a lot of pieces of information here, but this is going to be very helpful for the state disbursement unit when they are allocating the payments to your employee's case. You can still remit one large payment for multiple employees as long as these pieces of information are included for each employee. So that's going to be your employee's name, their social security number, as well as their child support enforcement participant ID number, and then the child support case number that's provided to you by the state disbursement unit or the other state, and the date of the withholding and the amount. Many of these pieces of information are going to be right on that income withholding order, but if you ever have any questions on what to include, please do not hesitate to reach out to 866-901-3212 and select option 1 to speak directly with the state disbursement unit. So next I'm going to go over new hire reporting. There's actually a large misconception that new hire reporting is voluntary. This is actually a mandatory process that is done through the Employment Development Department or EDD. Next slide. So all employers are required to report newly hired employees as well as rehired employees within 20 days of that first day of work, that start of work date. So we know what a new hire is. A new hire, that's going to be an employee that you've hired, and within 20 days, you're going to report that employee to the Employment Development Department. If you have a rehire, that's going to be an employee that you've hired, they've been terminated from your company for at least 60 consecutive days, and then they've returned to your business. If you do have an employee that fits that criteria, make sure that you are also reporting that rehire to the Employment Development Department. If you are an employer that has seasonal employees, you could potentially report one individual employee multiple times throughout the year. So kind of keep that in consideration as well. In addition to new hires and rehires, independent contractors do also have to report it to the Employment Development Department. So that's going to be an employee that you file a Form 1099 for services provided. You pay that independent contractor, which could be an individual or a sole proprietorship, $600 or more. Or if you have even entered into a contract with an independent contractor for $600 or more, they would also need to be reported to the Employment Development Department. Next slide. So the information that you report, it's beneficial to the child support program. This information that you report to the Employment Development Department, it is matched against child support records to help locate parents, as well as establish orders for support, and provides up-to-date earnings records. Because you also report your quarterly wage reporting, this information is also very helpful for the child support agency. Next slide. So I wanted to share with you the example right here. This is the form DE34. This is the form that you will use to report your new hires as well as rehires. There is an additional form that you will use for reporting your independent contractors, and that will be form DE542. So when you're reporting your new hires, rehires, as well as independent contractors, I wanted to highlight some pieces of information that are very important to report accurately and consistently each time you report this piece of information. Okay, click. So the California Employer Account Number, this is provided to you by the Employment Development Department. This is very helpful to report. If you need, on the next slide I have the taxpayer assistance line, but if you have any questions, you can contact the taxpayer assistance line and they will help you through reporting this form. The next piece of information is going to be your federal employer identification number. This is provided to your company from the IRS. So if you need this number, please reach out to the IRS to obtain that, but make sure that you're reporting all digits of this number each time. The next piece of information is on here it states business name, but specifically your legal business name. All characters of your legal business name. So for example, if it's AB Incorporated, make sure you report AB Incorporated consistently each time with your new hire reporting. In addition to that, a contact person, phone number, as well as an address for your company. The next piece of information that's very important is information on your employee. So your employee's first name, middle initial, last name, their full social security number, their address, and their start of work date. If you're utilizing the DE34, you can report up to 6 employees per form. But this, like I said earlier, this information is used to help locate parents and establish orders, but this information is also used to communicate with your company. So we want to make sure that we're communicating with the correct legal employer for this employee, and we want to help prevent any duplicate information from being sent to your company. Next slide. So there are several ways to report your new hire information. The fastest and most efficient way is going to be to utilize eServices for Business at the web address provided here, but you can also report utilizing send it by mail to the Employment Development Department, to the Document Management Group, or by fax. And I would like everybody to make a note of this taxpayer assistance number. It's 888-745-3886. This is through the Employment Development Department. If you need assistance with reporting your new hires, rehires, or independent contractors, the individuals at the Taxpayer Assistance Center will be able to assist you. Next slide. So I mentioned eServices for Business earlier. I want to share with you some additional benefits. I know each of us are, we're attending this virtual forum in a virtual space, and I want to provide you with a resource to help you report your new hires, rehires, as well as independent contractors electronically. So when you register for eServices for Business, there are some additional benefits to you as the employer. You can manage your payroll tax account, as well as register as an employer, file reports. You can make address changes. And one additional feature on here, you can also see any notifications that have been sent to you. That would be sent in the mail. You'll be able to see a PDF of any of those letters that are sent to your company as well. And then at the bottom of the slide, there is a web address for different tutorials on how to use the different functions within eServices for Business to assist you. Next slide. And I also want to provide each of you with my contact information, angela.jones@dcss.ca.gov. If you have any questions following this virtual forum, please do not hesitate to reach out. So thank you, and I will turn it over to Tyler.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending. My name is Tyler Petrangelo. I'm a child support worker with the Ventura County Department of Child Support Services, and I've been there about 12 years. And I'm going to be speaking today about a document that we often send to you. It's called a wage and insurance verification. And the purpose of this document is to confirm employment and possibly learn more details about an individual that we have on our caseload, someone that we think is working for you. Maybe we have their name, but we don't have an address, or maybe we don't have a phone number, so we're hoping to get more information from you. We use the information about their employment to calculate a proposed amount of child support to get a court order for child support. That includes things like not just their wages, but health insurance costs and availability, and their taxes and their filing status, that sort of stuff. This information can also help us determine an appropriately sized payment on past due support. Sometimes when people miss payments, they accrue a balance, and we also need to pay that down as well. And then the information can also tell us if this individual has other obligations or other dependents that we need to consider. All right, here's the first page of the document. And those of you that have been doing this, been doing child support garnishments or health insurance orders for a little while, you might recognize this form. It's going to look a little different, though. It was recently changed to provide two options in how to complete it. Option one is the original, the only way it was done before, where you receive the document, you complete the information that we're asking for, and you simply return it to us. Option two, though, now allows you to print out. You may have a screenshot or a way to print out information from your software, from your payroll software, that already includes this information, and you don't need to write it if it's all included, and then you would send it back to us. We're also stamping, case managers like myself are also stamping this document with our own email addresses so that you can return this form electronically, which is faster and easier. Okay, so here's the first page where we ask you to provide information. And at the top, this is who we're talking about, the employee's name, social security number, date of birth, address, phone number, basic information. All of the information like this is kept confidential. So social security numbers or other private information is protected. And then below their information, we have their work status. I've highlighted a couple of the boxes there. This might be someone that never was employed with you. Maybe we got the wrong information, or we were misled or something like that. We thought they worked for you, but they don't work for you, and that's fine. You can mark that. Or they could be someone who's currently employed, and you can let us know if they are part-time, full-time, or if they're a seasonal worker. They might be an independent contractor, also known as a 1099 employee. You can mark that. Or perhaps they were employed with you, but they're no longer employed with you. That's the last option. And then you can provide us, please, with the last date that they're employed, or their termination date. And then there's a reason for termination you can put there as well. If you know the new employer that they've gone to, we ask you to please provide that, the name and address of the new employer. All right. Below that, tax filing status, single, head of household, married. Again, this information is important for us to calculate how much child support we're going to ask the courts to order in the case. Then we get into their pay. The pay date, the pay frequency. Most people are biweekly, but you might have semi-monthly or weekly. Then deductions, things like mandatory retirement, like for a pension, or union dues. And if they are a union member, if you could please provide that information. And then their period of employment, you may only have a start date if they're still employed with you, that's fine. Or they may have been a previous employee and you can give us the range of their time of employment with you. And this bottom section where you're going to list their gross earnings, this is probably something that you would be able to print out and provide rather than having to write this down, depending on the software that you have to do your payroll with. But we asked for monthly gross earnings here. All right, next page. Now we get into health insurance. The type of employment that someone has might mean that there is no health insurance available. That's the first option. Or there might not be health insurance available for dependents. They may have it for just the employee, but not for the employee's dependents. Or you have health insurance that is available at no cost. Or you might have health insurance that is available at a cost, either a partial cost because the employer covers some, or maybe it's a full cost. But if you could please provide us with this information, this is going to help us, A, determine how much child support someone should be paying, but also if the health insurance costs are reasonable for us to deduct, although that we talk about that in a different way in the National Medical Support Notice portion, or in more detail. And then below that is dependent information. Again, it might not just be, they might not just have children that's on the case in question or the case that we're trying to get more information about, but they may have children from another relationship. So this is where you would list the dependents on their health insurance. And then the policy information, and this would be for medical, dental, and vision, although maybe only medical is provided, whatever is provided. If you could please give us the insurance company's name, address, phone number, policy number, the effective dates of coverage, and expiration date if that applies. All right, and then the last page, this is simply a certification. You are under penalty of perjury, you are agreeing that the information furnished in this document is true and correct. And I have seen some employers, they have a stamp already that has this information. They stamp it and then they just sign their name. That's fine, as long as the information that's listed here is included when you complete the document. That's perfectly fine. And then return it to us either by mail, or if you see an email address provided on the front page, it should be a stamp that the case managers like myself are putting. You can return it through email. And next, I'd like to demonstrate or walk through a couple of websites for you for additional resources. The first website I'd like to direct you to is our website here in Ventura County. This is www.ventura.org/child-support-services. And this is the page that you'll come to, the home page. And in about the middle of the page, you see a couple of options. There's a drop down there for employer information. And at the bottom of that little list is employer form. This is where we're going to be hosting today's event. We'll have a recording up so that you can access it at a later time if you'd like to go through it again, or if you'd like to see some examples again, if that's helpful for you. We also have some other resources listed on this page, as you can see. Those are all hyperlinks there. And a little bit below it is where we'll host the video, right about there. All right, and then the second website I'd like to direct you to, or make you aware of, is the state of California's Department of Child Support Services website. That is www.childsupport.ca.gov. And this is the homepage when you load the page. And in the upper right, you'll see a drop down for employers. And there have a few options here, but let's just go to the first one, Employer Resource Center. That's going to have everything in it. If we scroll down a little bit, on the left side, you see various links, how to update your information, report new hires in child support, bonuses, information on making payments, frequently asked questions. There are a lot of good resources here on the left. Now below that, also on the left, you have employer forms. I think it was mentioned earlier that we're no longer including every single form in our packets that we send to you. This is where you would find the other forms. They're all listed here. These are all hyperlinks to each one. A little to the right in the middle of the page, you'll see an employer handbook link. That's also a great resource that has everything you need to know in there. We have as many options as we can, but we also have phone numbers for you if you have any questions, or email addresses if that works for you. We're always here to help you. All right, thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to pass it back to Lupe.
And now we ask that you please click on the link that has been posted on the Q&A chat so that we can do a quick review. This is not a quiz and all responses will be anonymous. We will give you guys a minute to respond and then we will review the questions with you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with question 1. Are end of year bonuses exempt from withholding? 0 answered yes, and I see that all the responses that came in were no, and that actually is correct. So end of year bonuses are not exempt from withholding. That would be an example of a bonus that you would need to report to either utilizing the employer initiated acknowledgement on eIWO to report that bonus or lump sum payment, or you can utilize the child support portal on the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement to report it, or you can contact the lump sum response team directly, either by email or phone, as soon as you know that end of year bonus will be paid out to that employee. If your employee does have past due child support, then you'll receive a one-time lump sum income withholding order so that you can withhold from a payment from that bonus. So question 2, when are you required to report independent contractors? Anytime you hire one, when you pay them $600 or more and file a Form 1099, or never report those independent contractors. I do see that the majority answered when you pay them $600 or more and file a Form 1099. That is, or file a 1099. So that is the correct answer. So for independent contractors, in addition to paying the independent contractor $600 or more, or filing that Form 1099, even if you enter into a contract with an independent contractor of $600 or more and you haven't even paid them yet, that independent contractor would still need to be reported. So also make sure you keep that in mind. And that independent contractor can be an individual or a sole proprietorship. So question 3, how many days after an employee leaves are employers required to report a returning employee? So for this one, I see the answers were 45, 60, 30, or 15. And I see that majority answered 60, and that actually is the correct answer. If that employee leaves your business for at least 60 consecutive days and then returns, you would report that rehire to the Employment Development Department. So question 4, I see within how many days does an employer have to report a new hire or rehire? So the response, the choices were 7 days, 90 days, 180 days, or 20. And for this one, again, I see the majority of you answered 20 days, and that is the correct answer. So for new hires, rehires, as well as independent contractors, you want to report each of those within 20 days. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sonia, and she's going to go over some additional questions in the review section.
Thank you, Angela. So I am going to go over the income withholding order questions and also the National Medical Support Audit Notice questions. So let's start with number 5. This question asked, you have an employee with 2 income withholding orders, but the net disposable income is not enough to meet both orders. So how do you determine which one gets paid first? The possible answers were the first one was you look at the dates on the IWO and give priority to the one that was received first. Your second choice was you pay the one that fully satisfies the IWO, and then the remaining net disposable income will go to the other. Or your last choice was you add both IWO amounts and send the maximum allowed per the net disposable income calculation, which is your 50% calculation. So I see most of you replied, selected the last choice, which is actually the correct one. You don't have to worry about prorating your the amounts that you're sending to child support, that will be done at the state disbursement unit once we collect that payment. On your end, what you have to worry about is just, are you staying within the 50% threshold, and you're not exceeding that. So what we do ask is just, if there's multiple income withholding orders for us, just go ahead and include the maximum amount that you can take and also the case numbers, but you don't have to worry about saying so much goes to this IWO and so much goes to the other. Let's go to the next question, and that was, your employee has filed for bankruptcy. Can you stop paying the income withholding order? And all of you said no, which is correct. I know this sometimes creates confusion because if somebody is filing bankruptcy, they're trying to get help with their debt, but child support is one of those items that cannot be written off with a bankruptcy. You may get maybe an amended IWO from us, just depending on what's going on with the case, but you definitely would not stop charging child support because of this. The only reason why you would stop is, again, when you get a termination from us. Next question is, you are currently enforcing an income withholding order from a local child support agency in California, and you receive a new income withholding order from another state for the same employee and the same child. So what do you do in this situation? Your options were, the first one was to stop enforcing the California order and enforce the new out-of-state income withholding order. Your second option was to contact your local child support agency and notify them of the new income withholding order. And then your third option was to enforce both income withholding orders as long as the net disposable income is below the 50% withholding limit. And the answer for this, well, based on the responses, it looks like we're a little bit split. Some of you thought they should contact the LCSA, and other people thought we should enforce both as long as it's within the 50% withholding limit. But the answer for this was actually the second one. We do want you to contact your local child support agency. The reason for this is we shouldn't have a garnishment for the same child and the same employee with two different states. Sometimes what happens is a party will move and relocate and they don't notify us, and then another state gets involved. They're enforcing the same order we're enforcing, and there's a conflict, and we need to resolve that and determine who should be enforcing. So again, let's not confuse this with a situation when there is another income withholding order for a different child. That would be a different family, and that's okay. This, again, we're talking about when it's the same child. We do ask that you contact us. Now let's go over number 8. Number 8 was, your employee says they can't afford the health insurance policy despite it being within the net disposable income guidelines. So what do? Do you return the National Medical Support Notice? Do you enroll the children? Or do you ask the employee to contact the local child support agency? Most of you answered to contact the local child support agency. And while that is correct, you can refer them to us. Your role in this situation will be to continue enrolling the children. So the correct answer is actually the second option, which was enroll the children. But yes, like I mentioned, we do have that other calculation that we could do to determine if the if the health insurance cost is reasonable. And if so, then we will do that determination on our end. For your role, you would continue by enrolling the children. Question 9, do you need to honor the National Medical Support Notice if the employee indicates that the child or children already have health insurance? For example, if someone else is already providing it. The possible answers were yes or no, and 100% of everyone replied yes, which is the correct answer. Yes, you need to honor it. The only difference, again, is you can refer them to our office. There are times where we do make exemptions, and if health insurance is already being provided through a private insurance, Sometimes we will allow that to meet the health insurance requirement, but at that point you would receive a termination. And let's go with the last question. So your employee's net disposable income is $500. Based on the information below, can you enforce the National Medical Support Notice? And there was a chart included which said your monthly child support amount is $300, the arrears payment amount was $150, and the health insurance cost was $100. And most of you said no, and a couple said yes. The correct answer is actually yes. And if you remember, if you have time, you go back to the slides, you're going to see the priority of payments when it comes to child support. You're going to see that, remember, the first priority goes to the current support. So current child support, current spousal support. Third, the next priority is going to be for health insurance and arrears payments coming at the end. So in this situation, you would be, if you have $500 available, you would be applying the $350 monthly child support amount. You would be doing your deduction for the health insurance cost, and that's going to be set you at $450. So you have $50 left that you could send towards the arrears payment. Not 150 like we're requesting, but that is why the answer is yes, because health insurance comes before any arrears payment amount. Thank you. Now I will hand it back to Lupe.
Okay, the Q&A is now open to answer your questions. If you haven't already posted them in the chat, please do so now. And the first question will be for Michael. Do we need to have a case number from the state on a non-4D case before we withhold?
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. I did post an answer to this in the Q&A section, and the answer is yes. When you review the slides, you'll see that there is a difference between a child support enforcement case and a private case, which is why we always encourage people to use the services of the department. Step one, when it's a private case, is to send a copy to the state disbursement unit, so that way they can assign you the case number. Upon receiving that confirmation and case number, you'll be able to withhold and send in those payments to the SDU. Thanks.
Thank you. And the next question, will the slides be available after the webinar for the contact information? Yes, we will email this presentation along with other material to everyone that was present today. So you will receive that via email. And does one lump sum payment order apply to all lump sum payments in the future or until further notice? This will be for Angela.
Thank you. That's a question. So on that the one-time lump sum income withholding order, that's going to be for just that specific bonus or lump sum payment. That's why it's very important that each time your employee is going to be receiving a bonus or a lump sum payment, that you report that, either utilizing the employer-initiated acknowledgement form, an EIWO, or the child support portal, or even contacting a lump sum response team directly via email or phone, because things can change with your employee's case. So they may have past due child support at the beginning of the year, and there may not be an arrears owed towards if there's a bonus that's being paid towards the end of the year. So we won't know that until that case is reviewed each time. So definitely make sure that you're reporting that bonus or lump sum payment as soon as you know that employee is going to be receiving it.
Angela, and the next one is for you also. Can we get lump sum orders via EIWO if the FEIN is registered?
Yes, if you are registered for the electronic income withholding order process, then you will receive that one-time lump sum income withholding order electronically as well. So yeah, you only have to enroll one time, and then all of those child support income withholding orders will be sent to you electronically. But I will say there are some situations where if an employer is registered in the EIWO and you contacted a lump sum response team for a payment that's going to be paid out that same day, the lump sum response team can fax or email the one-time lump sum income withholding order over to you so you can get it back as soon as possible to process that bonus or lump sum payment.
Thank you. And it's like someone left a comment, there is no paper at all and easier to manage. And I think that they are referring to the eIWO. And the next question will be for Michael. If we are signed up for eIWO, do we need to print off a paper copy and provide it to the employee and include paperwork for them to contest the deduction?
And I also posted an answer here. It's a good question because it wasn't explicitly written out, but the goal of the eIWO is to replace that packet that you get in the mail. So because it comes in a PDF form, there will be a part of the PDF that you do need to print out and give to your employee. So yes, the answer is please print out the sections of the PDF that apply to your employee.
Thank you. And this question is for you, Sonia. The NIMSIN states that the cost to enroll dependents into a group health insurance plan should not exceed 5% of the employee's gross income. Our insurance premiums exceed this 5% limit. How can we inform this to the child support agency using the Part A of the NIMSIN employer response?
So in this situation where it does exceed, and if you already did the calculation, we do appreciate that. We do need that information given to us. Usually what we ask is that you refer the employee to us with the information as we indicated on the PowerPoint. We need their gross earnings and we need the cost for health insurance for themselves and then the cost for the children. We will just go over those figures again to ensure that it meets that criteria, and if it exceeds that 5% limit, then at that time we would send you a termination. So it's not something you actually do on your end. Just make sure you provide this information to your employee and then they would be reaching out to us.
Thank you. Since we have no further questions, this concludes our presentation. We also wanted to let you know that you will be getting 2 follow-up emails from our office. One will be a survey regarding this presentation, and the second email will be of handouts and resources that you might find useful. Once again, we thank you for your time. If you have any other questions or concerns in the future, you can contact us at 866-901-3212 or via email at dcss.outreach@ventura.org. Thank you once again, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.